The phone call came at 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. I know the exact time because I was staring at the digital clock on our nightstand, wondering why my wife Nicole was whispering into her cell phone in our bathroom with the door closed. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. You know you're the only one who ever really satisfied me, her voice carried through the thin door. Tom's just safe. Safe. Like a goddamn savings bond or a minivan. I lay there in our king-sized bed, listening to my wife of 6 years tell another man how sexually inadequate I was. The irony wasn't lost on me that I felt about as secure as a house of cards in a hurricane. When Nicole finally crept back to bed, I pretended to be asleep. She slipped under the covers, and I caught a whiff of her perfume, the expensive stuff she only wore for special occasions. Apparently, late-night phone sex qualified. The next morning, I made coffee and waited. Nicole came downstairs in her power suit, the navy blue one that made her look like she could foreclose on your grandmother's house and sleep soundly afterward. "Morning, honey," she said, not looking up from her phone. "Good morning," I replied, watching her scroll through what I assumed were more messages from her mystery man. "Sleep well?" "Like a baby." She grabbed her travel mug and headed for the door. "Oh, by the way, I'm having lunch with Derek today." Derek, her ex-husband, the charming car salesman who'd cheated on her with half the women in our mid-sized Ohio city. The same Derek she'd sworn she never wanted to see again. "That's interesting timing," I said. She paused at the door, finally looking at me with those green eyes that had once made me forget my own name. Now they just looked calculating. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. Just seems sudden." Nicole set down her mug and crossed her arms. Here it came, the conversation I'd been dreading and anticipating in equal measure. "Look, Tom, I've been thinking. Derek and I have history. We understand each other in ways that—" She paused, searching for words that wouldn't sound completely heartless. She failed. "I'm keeping him in my life. Deal with it or leave." The kitchen fell silent except for the hum of our stainless steel refrigerator, the one Nicole had insisted we buy because it matched her vision of our perfect life. I took a sip of my coffee and studied her face. She was serious, dead serious. "Interesting," I said finally. "Deal with it or leave. Those are my only options?" "That's right." She picked up her mug again, confident she'd won this round before it even started. I nodded thoughtfully. "What about option 3? Nicole's perfectly sculpted eyebrows furrowed. "What option 3? I smiled. The same smile I used when explaining simple computer problems to complicated people at my IT consulting job. "Don't worry about it. You'll figure it out." She stared at me for a long moment, clearly expecting me to elaborate. When I didn't, she shook her head and walked out. The front door slammed with the finality of a judge's gavel. I sat in my kitchen, surrounded by the life we'd built together. The granite countertops Nicole had picked out, the hardwood floors she'd insisted would increase our home value. The wedding photos on the refrigerator, showing two people who looked genuinely happy. Those people felt like strangers now. I pulled out my laptop and did what I do best. I started researching. Nicole thought she was so clever, but she'd forgotten one crucial detail. I'm the guy who set up all our accounts, installed all our software, and configured our home network. I knew every password, every login, every digital footprint in our house. What I found made my coffee taste like ash. Text messages dating back 3 months. Not just with Derek, but with Brad Hutchinson too, another ex-boyfriend who'd recently moved back to town. Nicole wasn't just rekindling one old flame. She was running a goddamn romantic fire department. The messages were explicit, detailed, and utterly devastating. Nicole describing what she wanted to do with both men, planning secret meetups, comparing their attributes to mine in ways that would make a divorce lawyer salivate. But the worst part wasn't the sexual content. It was the cold calculation behind it all. Nicole discussing which man had better financial prospects, weighing Derek's charm against Brad's money, treating me like a safety net she could fall back on if her other options didn't pan out. I printed everything. Screenshots, message threads, even her browser history showing searches for how to have an affair without getting caught, and signs your husband suspects cheating. Then, I called my buddy Maya at the boxing gym where I'd been training for the past year. Maya was a former Marine who'd seen enough of the world to know that sometimes good people had to do bad things to survive. "You sound like hell," she said when she answered. "I need advice, the kind you don't give in public. Come in early, before the morning crowd." An hour later, I was standing in Maya's office above the gym, surrounded by the smell of leather and sweat and honest effort. I laid out the whole story, including the printed evidence. Maya read through everything with the same expression she wore when studying fight footage: analytical, cold, professional. "Jesus, Tom, she's not just cheating on you, she's shopping for your replacement." That's what I figured. "So what do you want to do about it? And don't say forgive her. I can see it in your eyes. You're done with forgiveness." I looked out the window at the city where I'd spent my entire adult life, where Nicole and I had met at a coffee shop, gotten married at the Botanical Gardens, bought our first house in the suburbs, where she was currently having lunch with her ex-husband, probably planning their next romantic rendezvous. "I want them to understand what option 3 means," I said. Maya grinned. It wasn't a nice grin. "Now you're talking my language. But remember, you're not trying to knock them out with your fists. You're going to knock them out with your brain." "What do you mean?" "Hit them where it hurts most. Their reputations, their relationships, their sense of control." She handed the papers back to me. "Make them feel as powerless as they made you feel." I drove home with Maya's words echoing in my head. Nicole's car was already in the driveway. Her lunch with Derek must have gone well. I found her in the living room, looking flushed and satisfied in a way that made my stomach turn. "How was your day?" she asked, not looking up from her phone. "Educational." I sat down across from her. "How was lunch with Derek?" "Fine, we just talked." "About what?" She finally looked at me, and I saw something flicker in her eyes. Guilt, maybe, or just annoyance at being questioned. Just old times, catching up. "Sounds nice." I leaned back in my chair. "Did you tell him about option 3? Nicole's fingers tightened around her phone. "What are you talking about?" "This morning, you gave me 2 choices. Deal with your relationship with Derek or leave. Remember?" "Yes, and?" "I mentioned there was a 3rd option. I thought you might have discussed it with him." She set her phone down carefully. "Tom, what is option 3? I stood up and walked to the window. Our neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, was watering her garden, the same routine she'd followed every evening for the 5 years we'd lived here. Consistency, reliability, the things Nicole used to claim she valued in a partner. "Option 3, I said without turning around, is when I stop being the safe choice and start being the dangerous one." When I finally looked back, Nicole was staring at me with an expression I'd never seen before. For the first time since this whole mess started, she looked uncertain. Good. Uncertainty was exactly where I wanted her. The next morning, Nicole tried to act like our conversation had never happened. She made small talk over breakfast, asked about my work schedule, even suggested we go out for dinner that weekend. It was a masterclass in gaslighting, except I was no longer a willing student. "I'm going to be working late tonight," she said, gathering her things. "Don't wait up." "Client meeting?" I asked innocently. "Something like that." After she left, I made a phone call to Derek's dealership. It was time for some reconnaissance. Riverside Auto Sales, this is Derek speaking. His voice was exactly as I remembered, smooth, confident, the kind of tone that could sell ice to an Eskimo or convince a married woman to betray her husband. Hi, Derek. This is Tom Mitchell, Nicole's husband. The silence stretched for several seconds. When he finally spoke, his voice had lost some of its polish. Oh, hey, Tom. What can I do for you? I was wondering if we could meet for lunch today. There are some things I'd like to discuss. I'm not sure that's a good idea. I think it's a great idea. Luigi's Deli on 5th Street, noon. Don't make me ask twice. I hung up before he could respond. Luigi's was the kind of place where the sandwiches were bigger than your head and the owner knew everyone's business. Perfect for the conversation I had planned. Derek was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth and looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. He was exactly as Nicole had described in her text messages. Tall, dark hair, expensive suit that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. The kind of man who looked good in photos and knew it. Tom, he said, standing to shake my hand. Thanks for coming. Thanks for agreeing to meet. I slid into the booth across from him. Though I don't think you had much choice. His smile faltered. Look, if this is about Nicole, it's absolutely about Nicole. I pulled out my phone and set it on the table, but probably not in the way you think. We ordered our sandwiches in uncomfortable silence. When the waitress left, I leaned forward. How long have you been sleeping with my wife? Derek nearly choked on his water. We're not. 3 months, I continued as if he hadn't spoken. Since March 15th, to be exact. That was your first text exchange about meeting up. Can't stop thinking about what we had, I believe were your exact words. The color drained from his face. How do you... I'm in IT, Derek. Digital forensics is kind of my thing. I scrolled through my phone and showed him a screenshot of one of his more explicit messages. This is a particularly creative one. I didn't know you were so... flexible. He stared at the screen like it was a venomous snake. What do you want? Information. See, Nicole told me she was keeping you in her life and I should deal with it or leave, but she left out some important details. Like what? Like the fact that she's also been texting Brad Hutchinson. Remember Brad? Your old buddy from high school? He's been getting the same treatment you have. Derek's expression shifted from fear to confusion to something that looked like hurt. Brad? She's been talking to Brad too? Oh, more than talking. According to her messages, she's been comparing your performances. You're winning, by the way. Congratulations. He slumped back in his seat. I thought... She said she realized she made a mistake when we divorced, that she wanted to try again. She told Brad the same thing. I put my phone away as our sandwiches arrived. The truth is, Nicole is hedging her bets. She's got me as the safe, stable option, you as the exciting, dangerous option, and Brad as the wealthy, successful option. She's playing all of us. Derek picked at his sandwich without eating. Why are you telling me this? Because I want you to understand something. This isn't about you stealing my wife. This is about my wife using all of us like pieces on a chessboard. I took a bite of my sandwich and chewed thoughtfully. The question is, what are we going to do about it? What do you mean? I mean, are you okay with being Nicole's backup plan? Because that's all you are. That's all any of us are. He was quiet for a long time, processing everything I'd told him. Finally, he looked up at me with something that might have been respect. What did you have in mind? I smiled. I'm glad you asked. An hour later, I walked out of Luigi's with everything I needed. Derek had been surprisingly cooperative once he realized he was being played. He'd even provided some additional information I hadn't known about, like Nicole's plans to introduce him to her co-workers at the company party next week. My phone buzzed as I got to my car. A text from Nicole. Working really late tonight, don't wait up, love you. I screenshot the message and added it to my growing collection. Then I drove to Nicole's office. The tech startup where Nicole worked as an HR manager was everything you'd expect. Open floor plan, exposed brick walls, employees in jeans and sneakers pretending that casual dress made their corporate jobs more meaningful. I'd been there for holiday parties and company picnics, so the receptionist recognized me. "Hi, Tom. Here to surprise Nicole?" Something like that. "Is she in?" "Actually, she left about an hour ago. Said she had a client dinner." I checked my watch. 3:30 p.m. Either this was the earliest client dinner in history, or Nicole was getting sloppy with her lies. Did she say where? No, but she seemed excited about it. She even changed clothes in the bathroom before she left. Changed clothes for a client dinner. Right. Thanks, Jenny. I'll catch up with her later. I spent the rest of the afternoon preparing for Phase 2 of Option 3. I created a new email account, set up a secure file sharing service, and organized all of Nicole's messages into a comprehensive timeline. Then I made copies of everything and stored them in 3 different locations. By the time Nicole came home at 10 p.m., I was ready. "How was your client dinner?" I asked from the couch. She kicked off her heels and avoided eye contact. "Long, boring. You know how it is. Must have been some dinner. You changed clothes for it." She froze in the doorway. "What?" "Jenny mentioned you changed clothes before you left. That's dedication to client service." Nicole's jaw tightened. I spilled coffee on my blouse. It was unprofessional to meet with clients looking messy. "Of course. What did you eat?" "What?" "At dinner. What restaurant did you go to?" She stared at me for several seconds, clearly trying to come up with a plausible lie. "Italian place downtown. You wouldn't know it. Try me. I know all the Italian places downtown." "Look, Tom, I'm tired. Can we do this interrogation tomorrow?" She started toward the stairs, but I stood up and blocked her path. "Actually, I think we should do this now. See, I had an interesting lunch today, too." "Oh, really? Where did you go?" "Luigi's, with Derek." Nicole went completely still. If I hadn't been watching carefully, I might have missed the flash of panic in her eyes. "You had lunch with Derek?" "Yep. Great guy. Very talkative once you get him going." I pulled out my phone. "He told me some fascinating stories about your relationship. Want to hear them?" "Tom, I can explain." "No need. Derek explained everything, including your plans for the company party next week." Nicole's face went through a series of expressions: denial, anger, calculation, and finally something that looked like resignation. "What do you want?" she asked quietly. "I want you to pack a bag." "What?" "You heard me. Pack a bag. You can stay at Derek's place, or Brad's. I'm sure they'll both be thrilled to have you. You can't throw me out of my own house." "Our house. And yes, I can. Check the deed. My name is on it too. Check our bank accounts. I've already moved my money to a separate account. Check your credit cards. They're canceled as of this afternoon." Nicole stared at me like I'd grown a second head. "You can't do this." "I can, and I am. This is option 3, Nicole. You wanted to play games? Congratulations. You just lost." She stood there for a long moment, and I could see her mind working, trying to find an angle, a way to regain control of the situation. "Fine," she said finally. "But this isn't over." "You're absolutely right," I replied. "It's just getting started." Nicole moved out that night, taking only what she could fit in 2 suitcases. She didn't tell me where she was going, and I didn't ask. I had a pretty good idea anyway. The next few days were strangely peaceful. I went to work, came home to a quiet house, and spent my evenings planning the next phase of Option 3. Maya stopped by on Thursday with Chinese takeout and moral support. "You're handling this better than I expected," she said, unpacking containers of lo mein and General Tesso's chicken. "It's like debugging code," I replied. Once you identify the problem, fixing it is just a matter of following logical steps. And what's the next logical step? I showed her the email I'd been working on. It was addressed to Nicole's boss, her HR director, and the CEO of her company. The subject line read, "Concerning employee conduct." Maya read through it twice, her eyebrows climbing higher with each paragraph. Jesus, Tom, this will destroy her career. She should have thought of that before she decided to use the company party as her personal dating service. The email detailed Nicole's plans to bring Derek to the party as her date, her inappropriate use of company resources for personal communications, and her violation of the company's ethics policy regarding relationships with vendors. I'd included carefully selected screenshots as evidence, along with a note explaining that I felt obligated to report the situation as a concerned spouse. "You sure about this?" Maya asked. She made her choice. Now, she gets to live with the consequences. I sent the email Friday morning. By noon, Nicole was calling me. "You bastard," she said without preamble. "They fired me." I heard. "That's unfortunate." "Unfortunate? You destroyed my career. I reported unethical behavior to your employer. They made the decision to terminate your employment. Don't give me that corporate bullshit. You know exactly what you did." "Yes, I do. The question is, do you know what you did?" The line went quiet for several seconds. When Nicole spoke again, her voice was different, smaller. "Tom, please. We can work this out. I made mistakes, but we can fix this." "Some things can't be fixed, Nicole. Some things can only be replaced." "What does that mean?" "It means you should check your email. I sent you something." I hung up and waited. The email I'd sent to Nicole contained divorce papers and a detailed financial statement showing exactly how our assets would be divided. Since she'd been unemployed for less than 24 hours and had no claim to my business, the split heavily favored me. She called back within 10 minutes. "This is insane. You can't take everything." "I'm not taking everything. You can keep your car, your clothes, and half of our savings account. Which, by the way, isn't much since you've been spending so freely on your romantic adventures. I'll fight this in court. With what money? You just lost your job, remember? And good luck finding a lawyer who'll take your case on contingency when all the evidence shows you committed adultery. You're not the same person I married." "You're absolutely right. The person you married was naive enough to trust you. Consider this an upgrade." That weekend, I decided it was time to have a conversation with Brad. Unlike Derek, Brad hadn't been cooperative during my investigation. In fact, he'd been downright hostile when I'd tried to reach out to him. That was about to change. Brad lived in one of the new luxury condos downtown, the kind of place that screamed, "I have money and want everyone to know it." The doorman called up to announce my arrival, and I could hear Brad's annoyance through the intercom. "Send him up," he said finally. Brad answered his door wearing a silk robe and an expression that could have curdled milk. He was shorter than Derek, but more polished, with the kind of artificial confidence that came from inherited wealth. "This better be important," he said. "Oh, it is. Can I come in?" He stepped aside reluctantly, and I walked into a living room that looked like a furniture showroom. Everything was expensive, tasteful, and completely without personality. "Nice place," I said. "Very sterile." "What do you want, Tom?" "I want to show you something." I pulled out my phone and showed him a photo I'd taken outside Nicole's old apartment building. It showed Nicole and Derek in a passionate embrace, clearly visible through the lobby's glass doors. Brad stared at the photo, his face going through the same progression of emotions I'd seen from Derek. "When was this taken?" 2 days ago, while Nicole was supposedly having dinner with you." He sank into his leather couch, suddenly looking much older than his 38 years. "She told me she'd ended things with him, said she realized I was the one she really wanted. She told him the same thing about you, and she told me that both of you were just friends she was catching up with." Brad looked up at me with something that might have been respect. "You're not here to fight me, are you?" "Nope. I'm here to offer you a choice. What kind of choice? I sat down across from him. You can keep playing Nicole's game, competing with Derek for the privilege of being her side piece while she tries to win me back. Or you can help me make sure she never gets the chance to play anyone again. What did you have in mind? Nicole thinks she's smart. She thinks she can manipulate all of us and come out ahead. I want to show her what happens when smart people stop playing nice. Brad was quiet for a long time, staring at the photo on my phone. Finally, he looked up at me. What do you need me to do? By Sunday evening, I had everything in place. Brad had provided me with copies of Nicole's messages to him, including some particularly damaging ones where she discussed her plans to take me for everything I was worth in the divorce. Derek had given me information about Nicole's financial situation, including some credit cards I hadn't known about. But the real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. I was at the boxing gym Monday morning, working through my frustration on the heavy bag, when Maya approached me with a strange expression. "We need to talk," she said. We went up to her office, and she closed the door behind us. "I did some digging into Nicole's background," she said, "called in some favors with people who know people." "What did you find?" "Nicole's been planning this for a lot longer than you think. The affair with Derek? It started before you even suspected anything. And Brad? She's been in contact with him for over a year." I stopped pacing. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying this wasn't a spontaneous thing. Nicole has been systematically setting up her exit strategy. She's been moving money, establishing relationships, building a network of support for when she decided to leave you." The room felt like it was spinning. "How do you know all this?" Maya handed me a folder. "Because she made one crucial mistake. She trusted the wrong person." I opened the folder and found myself looking at bank statements, emails, and phone records that painted a picture of calculated betrayal going back almost 2 years. "Who gave you this?" "Someone who's been watching Nicole a lot longer than you have. Someone who has their own reasons for wanting to see her brought down." "Who?" Maya smiled grimly. "Her best friend Jenna." The revelation hit me like a physical blow. Jenna had been Nicole's maid of honor at our wedding. She'd been a regular guest at our dinner parties, our holiday celebrations, our anniversary dinners. She'd consoled me when I'd first suspected Nicole's affair, offering tissues and sympathy and advice about working through marital problems. Why would Jenna help us? Because Nicole screwed her over too. Apparently, Nicole promised Jenna a job at her company, then blocked the hire when she decided Jenna might be competition for a promotion. Jenna's been collecting evidence ever since, waiting for the right moment to use it. I stared at the documents, my mind reeling. This changes everything. How so? Because now I know exactly how to end this. I spent the rest of the week putting together the final pieces of option 3. With Jenna's evidence and the cooperation of both Derek and Brad, I had everything I needed to completely destroy Nicole's ability to manipulate anyone ever again. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Nicole had been telling everyone different stories, playing us against each other while positioning herself as the victim of a controlling husband. She'd been building sympathy, gathering allies, and preparing for a divorce battle where she'd paint me as the villain. She was about to learn that the best defense is a good offense. Friday night, Nicole called me for the first time in a week. Her voice was different, softer, more vulnerable than I'd heard in months. "Tom, can we meet? I think we need to talk." "About what?" "About us. About fixing this mess." I almost laughed. After everything she'd done, everything I'd discovered, she still thought she could manipulate me. "Where do you want to meet?" "Somewhere public, neutral. How about the rooftop bar at the Marriott? 8 o'clock? The Marriott's rooftop bar was exactly the kind of place Nicole would choose. Upscale, visible, full of people who might witness whatever scene she was planning to create. She was probably counting on my reluctance to make a public spectacle. She'd miscalculated. "I'll see you there," I said. I arrived at 7:30 and chose a table with a clear view of the elevator. Maya had offered to come as backup, but this was something I needed to handle alone. Nicole appeared at exactly 8 o'clock, wearing a black dress that I recognized as one of my favorites. Her makeup was perfect, her hair styled exactly the way she knew I liked it. She was pulling out all the stops. "Hi," she said, sliding into the chair across from me. "Thank you for coming." "You look nice," I said. It was true, even though the sight of her made my stomach turn. "I wanted to look good for you." She reached across the table and touched my hand. "I've missed you." "Have you?" "Of course I have. Tom, I know I made mistakes, huge mistakes, but I want to make this right." "How?" She took a deep breath, and I could see her shifting into performance mode. "I ended things with Derek and Brad. Completely. I told them both that I realized I was just trying to sabotage our marriage because I was scared of how much I love you." Interesting theory. It's not a theory, it's the truth. I was terrified of being vulnerable with you, so I created drama to give myself an excuse to run away. But I don't want to run anymore. She was good. If I hadn't known about the bank accounts, the secret apartment lease, and the job interviews she'd been going on in other cities, I might have almost believed her. "What about your job?" Her composure slipped for just a moment. "That was unfortunate, but maybe it's a blessing in disguise. Maybe this is our chance to start fresh somewhere new." "Somewhere new?" "I've been thinking about it. We could move to a different city, away from all the temptations and distractions. Just focus on us." I nodded thoughtfully. "That's an interesting idea. Have you given any thought to where we might go?" "Well, I've heard good things about Denver, or maybe Seattle." Denver and Seattle, the two cities where she'd been interviewing for jobs. She was still playing games, still trying to manipulate me into following her predetermined script. "Nicole," I said quietly, "do you think I'm stupid?" Her smile faltered. "What do you mean?" "I mean, do you honestly believe that I don't know about the apartment you leased in Denver? Or the job offer from the Seattle company? Or the $50,000 you've been moving into accounts with only your name on them?" The color drained from her face. "Tom, I can explain." "I'm sure you can. You're very good at explanations, but I'm not interested in hearing them." I pulled out my phone and set it on the table. And "What I'm interested in is showing you something." I opened a video file and turned the screen toward her. It showed Nicole and Derek in the lobby of his apartment building, engaged in what could generously be called a passionate reunion. The timestamp showed it was recorded 3 days ago. "This is from Tuesday," I said. "The same day you called me crying about how sorry you were and how much you missed our marriage." Nicole stared at the screen, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "There's more," I continued, swiping to the next video. "This is you and Brad from yesterday, having what looks like a very intimate conversation in his car outside that restaurant where you supposedly had a job interview." "Tom, please." "And this," I said, showing her a final video, "is my personal favorite. It's you, on the phone with someone, I believe it was your friend Jenna, discussing your plans to take that bastard for everything he's worth and disappear to Colorado." Nicole's hands were shaking now. "How did you get these videos?" "Well, that's the interesting part. See, it turns out that when you spend months lying to everyone in your life, eventually those people start comparing notes." I leaned back in my chair, enjoying the look of dawning horror on her face. "Derek was very helpful once he realized you were playing him against Brad. Brad was equally cooperative when he found out about your plans to disappear with his money. And Jenna? Well, Jenna's been documenting your schemes for over a year, waiting for the right moment to burn you down." Jenna's been feeding me information since the day you moved out. Did you really think she forgave you for blocking her job application? Did you think she didn't know about your plan to steal Brad's investment money? Nicole looked around the rooftop bar like a trapped animal looking for an escape route. The other patrons were starting to notice our conversation, drawn by her increasingly panicked body language. "What do you want?" she whispered. "I want you to understand something," I said, my voice carrying just enough to be heard at the nearby tables. You spent months making me feel like I was crazy, like I was paranoid and controlling and unworthy of your love. You made me question my own sanity while you systematically planned to destroy my life. Tom, please, not here. Yes, here, right here, in front of all these people, because I want witnesses to what I'm about to say. I stood up, and my movement caught the attention of everyone on the rooftop. Nicole shrank back in her chair as if she could disappear. Ladies and gentlemen, I said, raising my voice just enough to carry across the space. I'd like you to meet my wife, Nicole. She's been cheating on me with 2 different men while planning to steal my money and disappear to another state. The rooftop fell silent. Nicole's face had gone completely white. The interesting thing about Nicole, I continued, is that she's very good at playing the victim. She'll tell you that I'm controlling, that I drove her to cheat, that I'm the real villain in this story. But what she won't tell you is that she's been planning this betrayal for over a year. Stop, Nicole whispered. Please stop. She won't tell you about the secret bank accounts, or the apartment she leased without my knowledge, or the way she's been manipulating her lovers into thinking they were her only hope for happiness. I pulled out a folder and set it on the table. These are copies of everything. Bank records, text messages, emails, photos, videos, everything that proves exactly who Nicole really is. Nicole lunged for the folder, but I pulled it back. Don't worry, these are just copies. The originals are already in the hands of my lawyer, my accountant, and several other interested parties. You're destroying me, she said, tears streaming down her face. No, I replied. I'm revealing you. There's a difference. I looked around at the crowd of onlookers, most of whom were recording our conversation on their phones. This is option 3, I said, speaking directly to Nicole but loud enough for everyone to hear. You wanted me to deal with your betrayal or leave. Instead, I chose to make sure everyone knows exactly who you are and what you're capable of. I picked up the folder and walked toward the elevator. As the doors opened, I turned back to face the rooftop one last time. Oh, and Nicole? The divorce papers will be served Monday morning. Don't bother trying to fight them. You don't have the money, the evidence, or the credibility to win. The elevator doors closed on the sight of Nicole sobbing into her hands, while dozens of strangers recorded her humiliation. The video went viral within hours. Someone at the rooftop bar had live-streamed my confrontation with Nicole, and by Saturday morning it had been shared thousands of times across social media. The comments were brutal but fair. People had no sympathy for cheaters, especially ones who got caught so thoroughly. My phone was buzzing constantly with calls and messages. Friends I hadn't heard from in months were reaching out to offer support. Co-workers were sending congratulations. Even my mother called to tell me she was proud of how I'd handled the situation. I never liked that girl, she said. Too calculating. I could see it in her eyes at the wedding. Why didn't you say anything? Would you have listened? She had a point. Maya stopped by Saturday afternoon with pizza and beer. We sat on my deck enjoying the first warm day of spring and the sweet taste of victory. So what's next? She asked. Next, I rebuild my life without Nicole in it. Any regrets? I thought about it for a moment. Just one. I wish I'd figured out who she really was sooner. Maybe you weren't ready to see it before now. Maybe. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me check it. Tom, this is Derek. I wanted to thank you for opening my eyes. Nicole called me this morning, begging me to take her in. I told her to lose my number. Thought you should know she's running out of options. I showed the message to Maya, who laughed. Sounds like your plan worked. Better than I expected. Another text came in, this one from Brad. Nicole showed up at my building this morning. Security wouldn't let her up. She's been sitting in the lobby for 3 hours. Thought you'd want to know. Then a third message from Jenna. Nicole's been calling me nonstop, accusing me of betraying her. I finally answered and told her that betrayal is what she did to you. What I did was justice. Hope you're doing well. By Sunday, the story had been picked up by local news outlets. A reporter even called to ask if I wanted to do an interview about standing up to infidelity in the digital age. I politely declined. The public humiliation had served its purpose. I didn't need to pile on. Monday morning, I went to work as usual. My boss, who'd seen the video, pulled me aside to make sure I was okay. "I know this must be difficult," he said. "If you need some time off." "Actually, I feel better than I have in months," I told him. "Clarity is a wonderful thing." That afternoon, my lawyer called to confirm that Nicole had been served with the divorce papers. She'd tried to argue with the process server, claiming the evidence against her was fabricated, but it hadn't mattered. The papers were legal and binding. "She's asking for a meeting," my lawyer said. "Claims she wants to negotiate." "What's her position?" "Weak, very weak. Her lawyer, if she can even afford one, would advise her to accept whatever terms you're offering." "Then let's make this simple. She can have her car, her clothes, and whatever money is left in her personal account after she pays back what she stole from our joint accounts. Everything else stays with me." That's generous, considering the circumstances. I'm not trying to destroy her financially. I just want her out of my life. Tuesday evening, I was at the boxing gym when Nicole appeared. She looked terrible. Her hair was unwashed, her clothes wrinkled, her makeup smeared. She'd clearly been crying. "Tom, please, we need to talk." Maya stepped between us. "I think you should leave." "This is between me and my husband," Nicole said. "Ex-husband," I corrected. "And no, we don't need to talk. We need you to sign the divorce papers and disappear." "I have nowhere to go." "That's not my problem." "Please, Tom. I know I hurt you, but this is too much. You've destroyed everything. My job, my reputation, my relationships. You destroyed those things when you decided to lie and cheat and steal. I just made sure people knew about it." She started crying again, the kind of desperate sobs that were designed to make me feel guilty. A year ago, they might have worked. Today, they just made me feel tired. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry for everything." "I know you are. You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry your plans didn't work. You're sorry you're facing consequences for your actions. But you're not sorry for what you did to me." "That's not true." "Yes, it is. If you were actually sorry, you would have told me the truth months ago. You would have ended your affairs and tried to save our marriage. Instead, you kept lying right up until the moment I exposed you." I walked past her toward the exit. At the door, I turned back. "Sign the papers, Nicole. Take what I'm offering and start over somewhere else. It's more than you deserve, and it's the last kindness you'll get from me." She was still crying when I left. The divorce was finalized 6 weeks later. Nicole had signed the papers without further argument, accepting the settlement I'd offered. According to my lawyer, she'd left town immediately afterward, though no one knew where she'd gone. I didn't care. On a warm Friday evening in June, I was back at the rooftop bar where everything had ended. This time I wasn't alone. Maya had agreed to join me for a drink to celebrate the official end of my marriage. "Any regrets?" she asked, raising her beer in a toast. "Just one," I said, clinking my bottle against hers. "What's that?" "I wish I'd chosen option 3 sooner." We drank in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over the city where I'd rebuilt my life. In the distance, I could see the building where Nicole used to work, the apartment complex where she'd lived after I kicked her out, and the street where she'd met with her lovers while lying to my face. All of it felt like ancient history now. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. For a moment, I wondered if it might be Nicole, trying one last time to manipulate me into feeling sorry for her. Instead, it was from someone I didn't recognize. "Saw your story online. Going through something similar with my husband. Any advice?" I thought about it for a moment, then typed back, Stop being the victim. Start being the villain. It's more fun than you'd think. I put my phone away and ordered another beer. Tomorrow, I'd start the next chapter of my life. Tonight, I was going to enjoy the satisfaction of a job well done. After all, revenge is a dish best served publicly, with witnesses and video evidence, and I'd served it perfectly.